100 participants, so I geared it a little differently in my head,
No,
but that's okay.
You do you, it's all good.
All right, I am gonna drop it in the chat. I am a Microsoft school, but I try to make things Google friendly. If you're interested, would you say, Melinda, that your tech level is like a 5 for really good to a 1?
I'm gonna say maybe 3.5.
Okay, that's great. That'll get you through the year, right? All right, so let me just share here. And you don't have to introduce yourself in the chat, but the title list is WEPA, and I'm not sure if you know what WEPA means, but you do? What's it mean? Can you tell? WEPA, you've heard it before, the Gloria Estefan song. It means like, jump in, let's do this. And this is a quote that I have. One of my friends runs like an online column, and I'll just give you a minute to check it out. Last year, when we said goodbye to the kids, I didn't know it was the last time we were going to say goodbye. And that made me really emotional for the first half of the year. And I literally drove in every single day thinking, this could be the last time I see the kids today. So when I am with them and when the kids are in front of me, I have to make it count. That means no cell phone. That means not thinking about other things, but being in the moment with the kid. But as the year progressed, I have to say, like, this is really hard. And I think that, you know, that's evidenced by our participation today. By the way, thank you for joining. Things that we're thinking, are the kids there? Are they learning anything? Are my assessments valid? I get homesick sometimes when I go to PDs and they share really good ideas. And I'm like, I want to do this, but you can't do that in the world that we're in right now. Headaches. Some of my colleagues have had headaches that have been so bad they can't come into school. And I actually heard a student say recently, sometimes I just feel hopeless. So I'm just wondering, I know there's only 3 of us here. You don't have to share it with me, but do any of these resonate with you?
Well, I'm not in the classroom, but yeah, sure, absolutely. And I'm hearing it from a lot of the teachers.
It's just at that point where it feels like you're starting to feel, you know, like you're breaking a little bit. So I ask myself now, in order to emotionally get through the year, this is the Zen that I talk about sometimes. Did I, and I tell this to my colleagues a lot, I work with a huge department. There are almost 30 of us in the world language department, and they'll come in a lot and say, I'm really struggling. You know, I have this kid and I can't connect with them. If you can ask myself, did I create engaging lessons? Have I tried to build positive relationships? Have I contacted home, guidance, administration? Then you accept that you've done your part. It's like, sometimes I say it's like a buffet. You put out this rich, nourishing meal for the kids. You put all the effort into it. But ultimately, there's a lot of things during a pandemic that we cannot control, and we are not responsible for solving the pandemic. That has helped me so much throughout this year, just to accept my role in this as a Spanish teacher. I don't have to solve all of these problems, but I do have to present engaging lessons, which is what I put together today. Just gonna start, you don't have to do this, but I do this with my kids all the time. Quick brain break. I do them at the beginning of class because I want my students, they've been sitting sometimes in front of the computer, so I do it at the beginning of class. So this is a quick brain break. Give yourself a self hug, and I count into 5, and I tell the kids to breathe in, and I count in Spanish or whatever your target language is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's one of my favorite. I have a lot of different brain breaks that I use with the kids. I never go through a class without doing one because their little bodies are hurting too. They're getting really tight up in here. All of these different tricks that I'm going to talk to you guys about. If you decide to stay, we can only go through portions if you want. This is for you. PD is for you. It's not for me. And don't feel bad if you have to go. We're going to talk about greetings and class identity, gamification in your class, using movement, speaking activities, using collaborative slides. And I'm probably going to take out music because it is pretty lengthy. And I think you might get more out of the other ones, or have me elaborate on anything that you might want me to. So for greetings in class identity, when I first start class, I always have kids do the same thing. And I learned a lot of these things from Martina Bex, Alicia Cardenas, La Maestra Loca. If you follow any of them, I've taken about 100 hours of PD since the pandemic began. Some of it was free, some of it was not, but it was all, I've curated those things and tried to bring them to this presentation. So as soon as we start, I say, kids, I want you guys to hover over your mute button. So I'm not sure you're in Google Classroom. And on the count of 3, I'm going to have you unmute, and I want you guys to do this for me, and say hello to 3 different people in the target language. So you're going to say hola to 3 different people. 1, 2, 3, go. Hola, Aaron. Hola, Melinda. Hola, Sarah. And it's just chaos. It sounds like chaos, but I'm like, oh, boom. I've already heard them speaking in the target language. Sometimes I have them do the frase secreta, which is like an essential word that's from Bryce Hedstrom. And sometimes I'll have them say something like, help me in Spanish. On the count of 3, say, help me. 1, 2, 3, ayúdame. Whatever it is, I look at I'm not sure how it is in Google Classroom, but I look to make sure that the mics have been unmuted. And if they don't all do it, I say, oh, we're gonna do it again. So I tried to say hellos and slip in some language and get the kids knowing that I expect them to be there and be present in the class, because I'm gonna be there too. I got this idea from Annabelle Allen, who's also known as La Maestra Loca, and it's setting up class countries. So each class period is identified as a country. Period 1 is Colombia, period 2 is Argentina, and then I focus all of the different units, and you're teaching, let's see, 4 different class levels. So each one of your class, if they're singletons, would be a different class. So maybe 7th grade is Colombia, 8th grade is Argentina, Bolivia, Costa Rica. I do not use Spain and Mexico at all, because having grown up myself in Spain, I'm Spain centric, and that's all I really know about. That's where I grew up. So I try to focus instead on these other countries. Now I have a cultural lens with which I can focus these different units. So we're not just going to look at food. We're always going to focus on food in Colombia, clothing in Colombia, geography in Colombia. And right down here, I have this awesome resource for you guys. It's a YouTube, it's Expedia Travels videos, and they're so well done because they start with Google Earth, and then they fly into whatever country that class is. And they teach you just the highlights of that country. And that's nice for when I need a break, and I always need a break during online teaching. I need 10 minutes at some point during the class to take attendance, to have a sip of water, just to have a break, sit down maybe for a minute. You can buy these class countries on TPT, but they're very easy to make. They're by Annabelle Allen. And if you're doing 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, you would just want to make sure that your classes don't repeat that. So 7th grade, I used to teach 7th, 8th, sophomores and seniors. So I wouldn't ever have them be Colombia twice in their sequence with me. And this has been so fun for me because I've learned so much more about different countries. And the real goal of it is that the kids are starting to feel like they're part of a class, whether they're in the classroom or whether they're from home. Because I have a lot of kids that are still from home. I'm sure you do too, but it's like, we're Colombia. This is who we identify as. Here's an example of a project that I changed. It's the town project. I'm sure that you've heard of it before, but kids make a PowerPoint showing different locations in a town. Well, we changed it, and now you have to look up el hotel, the hotel, in Colombia, in Costa Rica. So they're looking at images specifically from their country. And then at the end, we have a nice discussion in English about what are the differences between that country and our country. How does this post office look different from what we know post offices as? So we're moving up that, the blooms, think, analyzing, comparing, contrasting. Another example of using class countries is communities and travel. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Google Voyager, but it is an awesome program in which the kids get to pick a city that they go to. You can find them for them in Google Voyager, and they actually have preset destinations of a day trip that they're going to go on throughout, for example, Havana. So I wanted to show you what a student would be seeing, and you can have them do different things in different parts of the city. So I had the kids using Yo voy a, and then the location that they were stopped at. So I'll just show you an overview of what Google Voyager looks like if you don't already use it. So those places that they're going to are pre-plotted by Google, and you just have to hook the kid up with the different city that they're going to. If you want to know more about this, I did a Google Voyager session for my district and for another BOCES, and I have right here a how-to so that you can go and see exactly how to use Google Voyager, and I have a video right here. Now, if you don't already use this, there's a million different ways you can use the Google Voyager feature, but I like it because it's like a day trip, you know, Madrid in 3 days, and the kids don't have to just wander the streets aimlessly, which sometimes happen when you're using the yellow guy who walks around Google. That can get a little bit lost. Any questions for me?
Do you know if the video component, can you render that in the 3D so you could use it with like a Google Expedition set?
So I'm not a Google school, and I'm not familiar with Google Expedition. I'm
Well,
only
it's
familiar with.
virtual reality things. Like a lot of
Okay.
videos have that where you can split it off.
Yes, I think one of the districts that I worked in, they were using Expedition, and I think it was compatible with it. Yes. But this has gotten a lot more robust in just the last 2 years. So there's like a lot more different cities that you can go to, but I feel like I don't have a positive answer for that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I don't expect you to know everything. I was just wondering.
Yeah. Education. So instead of looking at education through the lens of we're learning about education in Spanish-speaking countries, focusing just on Colombia, this is an awesome resource right here. It is a curated, authentic resource board by Amy Leonard, who is a world language educator that I follow. And anything that has AR on it, it's authentic resources that she has already curated for us. So en la panaderia, different types of tacos, and I love using these for assessments anytime I'm using authentic resources. And that is dropped right in here if you want to access it later. A second brain break, and then we'll assess the situation and see if you'd like to keep moving on. So our second brain break, and I do have the kids do them with me. If they do, it's awesome. And if they don't, again, I can only provide the situation. So this one I love. It's called El Caimán, or the alligator. Thank you, Annabelle Allen, for this one. And brain breaks are anything that does going across the body. So I have the kids make an alligator mouth, and I count to 5 going up. 1, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then close. Cierra. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I would have them do it on the other side too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Y cierra y respira. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have a lot more brain breaks linked into the presentation right here in case you're interested in knowing more. So speaking of brain breaks, before I move on, Melinda, what are you thinking?
I'm getting lots of stuff.
All
So,
right, let's keep going.
yes, keep going.
All right, thank you.
No, I'm familiar with Martina and La Maestra Loca as well.
Awesome. So I'm sure that you'll see some crossings that I've stolen from them. I've been so thankful for their presentations. Awesome.
No, you're doing a good job.
So I have more brain breaks here. Baila Viernes is from Mis Clases Loca, which is Alison Weinhold. And she's got this list of curated dances that she does on Friday with her students. And that was too much for me. I'm not going to do them with you. Don't worry. So this is the list of hers. And that was too much for me. And I find that 7th and 8th grade, I can get to do it. but pushing to 9th grade, they're starting to pull away from that a little bit. So I pulled out my absolute favorite ones that the kids have loved. And when I am doing a Dance Friday, it's just something fun. Like the kids have so little to look forward to right now. So I'll put this on and I say, if you're in the classroom, I really want you to participate. I'm not going to make you dance because some kids don't like to dance. 7th and 8th graders do. But if you're at home, I would love if you participated, and I can't make you do it. I do the whole thing. I get a few extra steps in and they only take about 2 or 3 minutes. These are the ones that I have found for Spanish class to be the absolute best. This link that I'll drop in the chat right now, it's also in the presentation if you wanted to check it out. And I like to, this one, for example, is a Coca-Cola one. So that will go great when you're doing food, the food unit. Okay, a ver, those are my favorites. I also, if you're familiar with Martina, I do a lot of gestures, and this is just from Van Patten, and they reference Van Patten a lot. That's basically the theoretical background of this, is we have the language input coming in. We have to link it with something. It can't just be floating out there and we're speaking 90% in the target language and the kids have no idea what we're saying because we're not linking it. So I have found in my teaching that for me, the best linking is coming from actual words. So when I used to have more kids in the classroom, I'd be able to point and say, vamos a repasar, and then I'd have repasar up here, and it actually says review. That's on the other side of my classroom. Having an image is going to give us a good link, but the most effective one is having a gesture. And I say it's the most effective just from my own practice, because at the end of every unit, I ask the kids, what's helping you learn the vocab? And they typically say the gesture. I'm in my career in my 16th year, and I'm doing a crosswalk right now from a more grammar style of teaching to a more comprehensive input, but I still kind of keep one foot in. I'm having a hard time letting go of totally doing grammar. So I just do a little bit. If we don't make the connection, it's going in the trash. So that's why I love to use the gestures. And these are the favorite gestures. My second language was ASL when I was in high school, many thanks to a deaf boyfriend who taught me so much ASL. But these are the ones that I use in my class. And if you're looking at this later, I embedded the video because it can be hard to remember them. There is or there are, which is I use this, I, una chica, that's from Martina, but I steal stuff from Kara Jacobs in this as well. I, una chica, want, I do this, and the kids know it now, quiere. So when I'm looking out on the Zoom screen or if you're in Google, I can say, ¿y qué quiere? Por favor, quiere, because that's the connection. They're hearing quiere, they're doing the gesture, and they know that means to want. The ASL version is down here, and that didn't work out with 7th and 8th graders. You can only imagine. To have, these are our super 7 words. To have, I just hold my hand. Ella tiene. ¿Qué tiene la chica? ¿Qué tengo? Goes or va, that's an easy one. Sometimes I do vamos as well, but I use this for caminar. Le gusta, no le gusta. Likes, dislikes. To visit, visitar. I take 2 V's, this is straight from ASL, and I go back and forth to visit. To learn, I take information and put it in my head. So aprender, and I say every day to the kids, hoy vamos a aprender, and I still do the gestures, because the more that they can have that comprehensible input coming in with the link gesture, the better the chances are that they're going to understand it. And now the kids do know vamos a aprender. They've got that cold by the end of my class with me. City, which is something I speak about a lot. We have a city unit. This is from ASL. It's the tops of buildings, ciudad. And then song, which I use a lot as well, because we do so much music in class. I do like a violin. Canción, vamos a escuchar una canción, and I make them do the gestures with me. That's also my assessment, my informal assessment that's going on during class. so that I know that the kids are following what we're doing. All right. I want to talk for a minute about game changers because I need to use games for my sanity to get through a class. My classes are between an hour and 15 minutes, and I'm bringing it. Like I said before, I want to be high energy, which means I need periods during the class where I can sit down and calm down for a few minutes or just get stuff done that I need to get done. Or no, if I'm really bringing it right now, I have a break in a few minutes and the kids are going to be playing Kahoot for a while. And the games that I love, I have on here. We've got Gimkit, which is paid for, quizzes, Look It. Nearpod has a mountain climber. I think my district pays for this. Kahoot, Quizlet Live, Wiser Me, which is digital worksheets that costs money. I think it's $40 for a year. If you have Google though, you might have a better version of that. My Microsoft version isn't very good. WordWall has been awesome. I pay out of pocket for a few of these things because I needed them throughout the pandemic and I need them while I'm teaching. And the kids love them. Anytime I see one of these come up in the forums that I'm on, I always just go check it out. So anytime you're learning a new technology, I think in order to do this, I have to watch a YouTube video about that. And that is how I have learned all these different games. We have a tech coach, but I'm in a school of 300 teachers, so I don't see him very often. And I have just found that I need to, you see these islands in here. Let's say Gimkit is this island. I'm going to watch a video on it. I'm going to sail over. I'm going to set 10 minutes, watch a video, play around, see if I can figure it out and decide if it's for me or not. Because there's a lot of different applications out there. I didn't even put them all on here, you know, Fluent Key, Charlala. There's all these new applications out there and they don't all fit me and they don't all fit my class. And I don't have to know every single one of them to do a good job. There's a brand new teacher down the hall. We like to call him the young buck. And he knows all of these and he can run circles around me with them. And that's awesome for him. I don't have to be him. I don't have to know all the tools. All right, our last one. This will be our last brain break. And then I'll check in with you guys. This one's El Serpiente, which I like to do with the kids too. And if you just want to watch, that's fine. I've done a lot backed up. But this one is crossing and the kids love this one because it looks really neat on the screen. So you're crossing over and then you've got your snake going up and then see if you can have him going back down. And sometimes I add afterwards just a few more stretches because we have done so much damage to our backs and necks during this time. Melinda, are you familiar with Bill Heller's work?
A little bit of it, yes.
Okay, I went to a really great conference with him recently and he talked a lot about speaking and I was able to adapt some of the things that he said to the world that we're in right now. When for me, I have 50% in front of me and 50% at home. So before I do any speaking, and I try to do speaking once a week, I have to think, do I want all the kids on Zoom in breakout rooms? Or do I want just the kids in the classroom speaking to each other so they can have that face-to-face interaction? Or do I want them to join and be on their computers talking with somebody at home? So that way we're engaging the kids at home. And I go back and forth between what I want to do. And here's the important thing. Kids do not know these days what a conversation should look like. So I will often model how the activity is going to go, whatever the speaking activity is, before I put them into it. So I'll say, so student A is going to start off by saying hi, or as soon as you get into the room, you say hi and introduce yourself. And then show them how the conversation has to go back and forth like a tennis match, because they're not used to speaking to people face to face anymore. I always have a slide deck or a pair deck or some kind of explanation that I can drop into the chat. I'm not sure if that's how you guys do things in Google, that they can reference, because as soon as they get into the classroom or into their Zoom breakout room, whatever breakout rooms they're in, they're going to say, what are we supposed to do? So I want one of them to be able to say, let's look at what she wrote down. And I'll often hop in and see if if they're following, I always start with the kids that I know are going to be struggling first. So I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like. And here's the most important part that I learned from Bill. Give the kids the words. I, years ago, would put a picture up and say, you know, talk with your partner about this picture in Spanish. And back then, the kids, they did have the vocabulary to do it, but I have a lot less, they have a lot less vocabulary now. So I'm giving them the vocab. So here's my example of that. I'll have this slide that I drop into the chat so that they can have it in their breakout rooms. And I say to them, you know, student A is going to say, ¿Qué vas a hacer este fin de semana? I give them ways to respond when the person says what they're going to do, because they don't necessarily know that it's a conversation that has to go back and forth. I give them the reading, and then we're linking the meaning here with the pictures. So anytime they're doing the speaking, we have to be giving it to them. I have to be at least at these levels that I'm doing. I have another example of what this would look like. An old activity that I used to do is if your platform is your announcement for the day, I can't remember what it was in Google, but I'll have one link for student A in the chat. And here's just a circumlocution activity where I'm giving them the words. It's part of the mouth. The color is pink. Don't mind the typo there. It's for speaking, drinking, and eating ice cream. And then the partner has to guess this. So I've given them the words. And I think that's, I can't remember who came up with those infogap activities. She was really popular like 20 years ago. And then student B is going to have just different clues and different answers. And I have heavily modified my my grading this year. I used to have, you know, a grading system that was really about feedback and helping the kids move forward. But right now, what I'm doing is if they are doing the task when I come into the breakout room, they get full credit for the speaking activity. And that's not ideal, but this whole situation isn't ideal. And it was one of those things that I just felt like I don't have a good way to control the speaking. It's something that has really suffered throughout the pandemic. So this is how I'm grading right now. And I had to make it a little bit easier on myself than the way that I used to do it. And as far as speaking goes, I still am doing secret passwords, but with a hybrid spin. So when kids come into my session, I often have them answer a question. So I say, you know, hola Melinda, ¿cómo estás? Hola Aaron, ¿cómo estás? Say hello to every single child. And then 1, 2, 3, we're going to quickly unmute and I'm going to have you repeat a phrase after me. It was ayúdame last week. And I do the same thing for closers, but I tend to like to have something that would be a natural way to close. So lately I've been having them say, que tenga buen día. So they're hearing, que tenga buen día, which is, may you have a good day. That has higher level language in it. It might not make sense until Spanish 3 or Spanish 4, but it is something that they would need to use if they're out shopping or if they're traveling. It's something that is high frequency in real life. All right, I'm going to take a break and just check in and see how we're doing and how you're feeling.
Doing okay.
All right, keep going.
If you want to, you're good.
All right, let's do. I would love to talk to you about slide decks because they made a big difference for me. And you can do this easily in Google. And I learned this from a book that was called Tech Like a Pirate or Teach Like a Tech Pirate, which is kind of a spinoff of Teach Like a Pirate. And it's the techie version of it. So creating a stack of slides and consider it a little piece of digital real estate. And then each student, as soon as I put it into the chat, they're going to claim their slides. So let me show you what this is going to look like. This is setting your table. And I use Google for this. So on each one where it says La Mesa de, each child is going to put their name in here. And that's how I get to look at what everybody is doing at once. Class Kick is another thing that offers a version like this, but I find this to be much easier for me to look at as kids are doing things. So let's say this one is La Mesa de Jose. Each student gets a slide. I make sure that I have about 30 slides. I actually only make one slide and then I duplicate it a whole bunch of times. So the way I would do this activity to get the maximum of comprehensive input in is I would say, en la mesa, on the table, yo necesito, I need, and then call out the item, sal y pimienta. And the student has to drag it over onto the table. And I can so quickly run right down these and see if the kid got it right or not. One of my colleagues who I just taught this to said, but couldn't they look at somebody else's and know what it is? Yes, they could, but that's okay because they're still hearing sal y pimienta, and they're still making the connection right here with salt and pepper. Then at the end, every single time, I'm going to say, quita la mesa, clear the table, and I tell them that it's down on the corner. So quita la mesa. This was a really fun activity. You could do versions of it for clothing, where they're putting stuff into a suitcase, and that would be for just introducing vocabulary. Other great ways to use a slide deck that I wanted to show you are categorizing words. So I might have groups in here. They're going to claim their slide as soon as they get in. And then they're going to work with your partner. And I usually put them into breakout rooms for this and I went to the wrong side, but drag the vocabulary over to the category that it is. And as you work up the levels, I would think you might be able to do this in a more complicated way around syntax, which I know the older kids enjoy doing a little bit more syntax than the younger ones do. Dice games. Oh my gosh. I wanted to cry the day that I figured out how I could use dice games again, because I miss them and we can't use, I can have a dice, but I have to sterilize it afterwards and then let it lay for a little while. I'm not sure if that'll continue, but these are just my old games that I would play with kids. And I put them into breakout rooms of 3, 1, 2, 3. I am not in the breakout room, but I can see what they're doing. And we've got a virtual dice roller over here. And open up for me. There we go. And the students have enjoyed doing this too, because I think that they missed the games. Roll the dice, student rolled a 1, and we go back over. They're going to move to 1, and they're on this little guy who looks hungry. In my level, I also gave them the words here. So it'd be very hard to lose. You'd have to be really bad to lose this game. But in upper levels, I think that you could probably avoid having this if you're just using it for a review. But I was really excited when I saw that I could still use dice games. And I do give the kids in the classroom a dice because they enjoy it so much. Just a little bit of grammar too. I like to do my basic verb endings. And I did a really classic lesson of each person gets a slide. I want each one of you, I can see them on the slides, erase the AR. Now I'm going to call out little sentences. I sing, and they're going to drag this over, and I can so quickly go right down here and see that they know how to move that over and have cantar. Every once in a while, you have a child who like somehow makes this really big and upside down, and you just gotta help them out. It makes me laugh. That's the joy of middle school. So those are just a few awesome ways that I use collaborative slide decks. I probably would say I'm using them in almost every lesson now, because you could use it for a game. You could use it for a worksheet. Basic vocabulary to introduce vocabulary. And I have some, and you could do class research. I did that when I first introduced the class countries, where each student got a slide and they were about different cultural points. I think I'm going to skip the music session because I feel like that could be a whole class on its own. And I just want to close this by talking about how I close every unit. I do unit feedback and reflection. And it was this one from today. This was from the last unit. So making sure that they feel like they're reflecting on their learning. This part is about the language. But during hybrid teaching, this last number 7 has been the very most important thing that I could ask a child. I just did one of these today. So I get a little emotional by some of the answers that kids have given me. Is there anything going on in your life that's impacting you that you would like me to know? And so many of these kids, I've never seen their face before. Some of them, I'm not allowed to make them turn on their cameras. I'm not sure if your school is like that. I've never seen their face, but they'll write in here, you know, I've been living in a motel and we've moved 3 times. I've had another student told me that her father is in rehab for meth, and it changes so much for me how I'm approaching getting them back on track because I've lost some of those kids, or even just to be able to follow up with an email that says, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. Like, this has been so difficult for everybody. And on top of it, you're going through this really difficult thing. And so I try to take a chunk of time where I'm just reading through those and then connecting with the student. Very rarely do they write back to me. But I feel like at the very least, I've tried to pull them in and make that connection with them. All right, so that was like the speed version. Do you have any questions for me or comments or areas of improvement?
I think you did a nice job. So
Thank you for sitting through it. I really appreciate it.
I'm actually intrigued about your music part, so I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. I use lots of music in my classroom, so.
So I love music too, and I feel like I have found some things that are a little bit more, give you more bang for your buck. Like I used to use a lot of the Zachary Jones fill in the blank songs. Yep. And I just found like they weren't having a big impact on my students. Mm-hmm. So instead I started viewing the song as a story. Right. So I don't know if you know the Soy Yo song, but instead of thinking like, oh, I'm looking for soy, this certain word throughout the song, I'm going to have them do the story with me. Hay una chica, va a la peluquería. And I do it over and over again. And then we do things like tallying the number of times we've heard a focus word, which is soy. Do you know the song Voy a Vivir by Mark Anthony? Yep. Yeah. So right after that song, instead of doing a close activity, I just have my lower levels say, you know, what was the vocab that you saw in that? And they're saying ciudad, calle. They had to give me 5 different words. Gente, hombre. So just some changes that I made with songs that I felt like I'm getting a little bit more bang for my buck, but they're also more realistic for hybrid teaching. Do you have any other things that you could tell me about?
Probably not. I do a song a week. I use a lot of Senor Wooly stuff. And I probably need to do more with songs than I do, but a lot of times we just listen to it and I pull vocab out of it every day and
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was finding that like I could make a big production about a song, or I could have a set of activities that, especially you with having all the preps that you have, it's like, no, we listen to the song and then, you know, you're the one who's going to be pulling out the vocab for me. I'm putting it on you. And then I'll give them like a small listening credit for having written down a certain amount of vocabulary.
I could have used this back in September. We're finally, no, this is our first week that we're full. Everybody's back 5 days. So
everybody's back. Wow.
I still have a few remote students, but the majority of students are back.
And I think next year when we go back and just a few remote, I'm gonna teach to the class, where right now I'm standing in front of the computer with myself projected. I just needed that for my sanity, but I am looking forward to being able to teach to the class like I used to, you know.
I have my setup. I have a desktop that I have hooked up to my smart board, and then I share that, and then I have my Chromebook that I kind of walk around so they see me with that.
Oh wow.
Kind of,
that's impressive.
Right now it's working, so.
Well, it's an amazing thing. Like, give yourself a pat on the back when I think about, you know, driving in that first day and thinking, what is this year going to be like? And somehow we've gotten through it. And teachers like you who come to PD, I feel like you've gotten through it in a way that's been better for the kids, because you're looking for stuff to help them, you know? So thank you.
No, I just wish some of these ideas would have been good, because same as you, we can't force our kids to turn their cameras on. Teaching the icons was really, really hard. Especially, I should have my camera on, but he's recording this. So.
It's okay.
But just trying to interact, because I use a lot of thumbs up, like, is it this, is it that? Show me your fingers, show me your thumbs, word walls in my room. And Google was very clunky at the beginning. It's gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
But to not have some of the things that I have around my room, and to try to get to know kids my 8th graders I had never had before. So to try to get to know them through a screen, it's very difficult.
Very difficult. Absolutely. It's
But,
been a year of learning for sure.
but it's gone by super quick. So I can't believe it's the end of April already.
Faster than usual, wouldn't you say?
I think so. I think so. So, but thank you. This was very helpful.
Thank you so much for coming. It means a lot to me, and I wish you the best for the rest of the year and having all the kids back. That's a big change. So thank you.
We started 4 days a week in the beginning of March, which was nice. We were doing hybrid 2 and 2, and then everybody started in the beginning of March, and today was or this week's our first 5 days. So far so good.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and
Thank you.
you as well as you finish your year.
Thank you. Have a good weekend too. It's on the horizon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Sarah. This was awesome. I'm
Thanks
sorry
for having me.
more people, but
You know what? I feel like some of the best PDs that I've ever been to, there's just been one or two, and they still meant something to me. So I remember that when you told me that we didn't have a lot of folks signed up. So my pleasure. And it was it's good for me too, to kind of synthesize the year. So thank you so much. And hopefully we keep in touch.
I would love that. I hope that maybe we can do something different next year or something, because you have so much energy. It's so fun to watch you, and just, yeah, you can tell you're just an awesome teacher. You're just having so much energy and enthusiasm. And I hated Spanish. It took me years to get through. Like, I failed college because I couldn't pass Spanish, and I'm like, I would have passed under her class.
Well, it's changed a lot. I feel like, since we took it, it's definitely changed a lot the way that we do it. I just passed 8th grade by the skin of my teeth for Spanish myself. So I think that's why I was drawn back to teaching 8th grade Spanish.
Yeah, and it's exciting when you did it, and like the way it was very rote and it was very difficult. And I guess I just had a bad attitude going. If I really wanted to learn this, I would go to a country that speaks Spanish, and I'm sure I would pick it up in a couple of weeks, But yeah, I think I would have definitely performed much better with a teacher like you. So I'm very impressed, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.